Welcome, welcome, welcome to the SubHub podcast. I'm MK Sullivan.
And I'm Danny Moreno, and welcome back to our Candid coaching series. Hopefully, you enjoyed our episode last week. We have a couple more coming out, so if you're enjoying it, just subscribe to our Spotify, Apple, YouTube, so you know when the next episode's coming out. Today is an interview with our first ever certified strength and conditioning specialist, Joslynn Peterson, who is currently based out of Boulder, Colorado.
Joss founded Bodyenroute, a business she started back in 2018 as a response to the lack of strength experience in coming back from her mastectomy. She left her role as a strength and conditioning coach at a climbing gym and launched Bodyenroute. And she has a lot of experience working with athletes of all kinds, but she works with runners, she works with climbers, she works with multiple top 10 Western States finisher Taylor Nowlin, also one of Danny's teammates.
Yes, as someone who was a former D1 athlete, Joss has a lot of empathy for folks who have dealt with injuries or are currently working through injuries. And through this conversation, we talk about a lot about injury prevention and the importance that strength and conditioning is playing in the ongoing role of trail running, continuing to rise as a sport and grow. So yeah, definitely tune in to listen to her philosophies around those.
And she is also opening a new gym in Boulder very soon. So be sure to check out her Instagram as well as her website, which we will link in the show notes for more information about that. And here is our episode with Joss Peterson. Hey guys, MK here. This episode is brought to you by Never Second. 2025 is the year of Never Second. If you've been following along on Instagram, you may have noticed that Never Second will be on course for some of your favorite races. So make sure to go check out their website and use our code so that you can start practicing ahead of time. As I get ready to start off my 2025 season, C30 drink mix has been my absolute go-to. When I'm training in the cold and getting ready to race somewhere hot, practicing with liquid calories is the easiest way for me to get in all my carbs. Try using Never Second C30 drink mix to make any combination of carbohydrate per hour for yourself. Right now, I'm using 75 grams of carbs per bottle. If you want to try Never Second ahead of your next race, just head to neversecond.com. That's NEVER2.com and use code SUBHUB25 for a 25% discount on all your orders. Hey Joss, thanks for joining us today.
Of course, we're the earmuff crew.
I know, all of us. This is the first time we've had everybody in like full earphones, I feel like.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we are so excited to have you today. But to get us started, where are you and how are you doing?
I am in Boulder, Colorado, and warm and toasty inside because it snowed a ton today, and unfortunately, I didn't get to go skiing.
Yeah, you've been pretty busy with what looks like setting up a new gym there in Boulder. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we are in the thick of it right now. Basically, just trying to get the equipment set up. There will be, I think, we're going to have 3 racks, a cable machine, dumbbells, kettlebells. And yeah, it'll just be a space for basically mountain athletes. So trail runners, climbers, maybe skimo people. But yeah, it's about 2,000 square feet. So there'll be lots of space to jump around, do plyometrics, have everyone space out.
That's really cool. Yeah, I wish we had something like that here in Mammoth, just like a big open space where you could move around with all those free weights and stuff like that. So yeah, huge congrats on that. That's a huge move for
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Thank
Well, to get started, like you said, Coach Joss, she is a strengthening coach for all sorts of mountain athletes, but she does have, an emphasis within that with trail runners. And so we are curious, what inspired you to focus on strength coaching for trail runners, and what opportunities have you chosen, or have you seen in this niche?
Yeah, so just a little bit of background on me. I ran in college, so I understand that elite competitive field. I also got many injuries. I am like such an injury prone person. I always tell clients, like, I really truly believe it is about genetics with that. Like some people are just genetically gifted and they don't really get hurt, and some people are always hurt. So it has to do a lot with biomechanics and uh, it's like some people are just gifted and a lot faster. So hence why I started to get into strength and conditioning. I basically had this injury that I went to a bunch of orthopedics, I went to PTs, and it kept me from running for, I took about 7 years off, like completely. Um, because I went to appointment after appointment and I gave up. I was like, you know what, no one can help me, and I don't want to fuse my ankle because I had multiple orthopedics say that. I won't dive super into that, but yeah, I just felt like hopeless. And so I had already been doing strength and conditioning. And so I just dove way harder into that. And I did some hiking. I got way into climbing. I basically just climbed for 7 years and hiked a lot with like crash pads. But I mean, I definitely missed it so much. So, but the cool thing is, through all the strength training and the climbing and the hiking, my injury went away. And so I got to start running again. And actually, an old teammate of mine, which you guys probably know, Taylor Nowlin, she's with Adidas, and I'm actually working with her right now. I'm doing her strength training, but she started trail running, and I shout out to her. I literally started doing trail running because of her. And I was like, what is she doing? Like, what is this trail running? And I was like people just like go slower. Why would you do that? But like it is changed my life. I am obsessed. It is so fun. And you honestly just get to escape in the mountains. And I just feel bad if people don't have that near them. Because there are a lot of places that don't have that.
Yeah, all three of us live in mountain towns, and we're very fortunate to live in those mountain towns
Yeah.
because I agree with you. Trail running is so nice to just be able to, get out there. So you said that you and Taylor were teammates. Was this in college?
Yeah. Yeah. We both ran at OSU.
Oh, cool. So you have obviously a background in running, and 7 years away is a really long time. If you don't mind sharing,
It's
and you don't
it
have to,
takes, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
what was the injury? Because you said that they suggested that you fuse your ankle. So I'm just like curious how you got away
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah. So I still have a lot of instability in my ankle. What happened, and I don't know if I want to say that I regret this because I don't regret anything. Everything always, leads you to another open door. But um after Thanksgiving, oh gosh, I'm going to say the wrong date, but this was maybe 10 years ago. Um, my now husband and I decided to go on a run because we were both just like really full. And I was like, I need to like get out. And so we go for a night run. I don't wear a headlamp. I stepped literally in a freaking pothole that I didn't see. I got caught and literally twisted my whole body and ankle. And so I just sprained it really bad. And I also at the time had a torn labrum from a different impact injury. I was surfing, shoulder dislocated, just weird freak accidents. And I kept running on it because I was, you know, late or early 20s, So like I had no idea. I was just like, oh, it's fine. It just kind of hurts. Like it's fine. And then it just progressively got worse. At the time, again, not a strength coach. I just ignored it, kept running through it. And then it got to a point where then all of a sudden my knee started to hurt. So a lot of injuries work that way. They're domino effects, right? And we ignore one, then something else happens, and then something else happens up our kinetic chain. And so, yeah, I ignored it. And the orthopedics I went to, they were like, essentially, your ligaments in your ankles are, think of like a loose hairband, and our hairbands just get so loose and like basically snap. They said they could go in and like, cut it and sew it back together. I don't, so my, not my tibia, my fibula, so the two bones in your shins, the fibula, because the ligament was so loose, it moves. So it irritates my knee. Yeah, because it's loose. So, um, yeah, I have to do ankle strengthening. So, or and what's really cool though is the trail running actually helped a lot. I know it sounds like it wouldn't because like all the different terrain, but the different terrain actually made it better. And I can thank climbing for that because we were just like on all sorts of trails and off trail to get to these random far boulders. And yeah, I would sometimes see people running and I'm like, what are they doing out here? So yeah, it was honestly the strength training that helped with the ankle and the glute strength and everything, stabilized. I do notice every so often if I don't lift, little things start coming back. Um, and I'm so guilty of ignoring some of it last year. So hopping back into it this year.
Yeah,
Aren't
I
we
find
all?
that, yes. Oh my gosh. Don't even ask me about stretching because it doesn't exist in my brain. But I totally agree that like with ankle stuff, like trail running, I swear just like has fixed most of my ankle issues, other than the fact that I still roll my ankle plenty, but just that like,
Yeah,
different terrain instead of just like running around a track or running the same thing on a road. It's like your ligaments like that. It's nice.
yeah, totally.
Um,
But to be fair, you cannot go as fast. That's the only thing.
yes. Yes, so
Although people are
true.
getting so fast, it's nuts.
Yeah. And especially on like just runnable courses, like, Danny and I talk about this a lot. Like all the college kids are just like making this sport so insanely fast. And it's just going to keep going that way, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll get into more like specifics as we go down, but I guess just to start off, like for runners that are new to strength training, because I know that most of us are bad at adding that into our lives, what are the basic principles or exercises, let's say principles, that they should focus on to maximize trail performance?
I, as a coach, always say move well before you basically lift or strength train. So, um, if you can find someone local, like if you don't know what you're doing, I would say definitely get a coach. Especially if you don't know what you're doing because you're just going to potentially cause a new injury. If you're not injured, then wonderful. Still probably get someone to watch you, even if it's like a session here or there. Just because a lot of, I mean, strength training is so different than especially if you're a runner, like you're just usually moving forward. Trail running, there's a lot of lateral movement, but I mean, it really depends on the terrain. So I would say if you don't know what you're doing, hire someone that's local or virtual, and then get some basic movements. And then really the biggest thing is being consistent. Like they can be the simplest movements, but at the end of the day, it's consistency. Like if you're lifting at least 2 times a week and doing like even 30-minute workouts, right? Like they can be starting with body weight, but then eventually you do need to overload or it is not strength training. I think that there are a lot of people that are like strength training and then they give band workouts. And I'm like, that is not strength training. Like that's a warm up. There are, I know, like running coaches that do that out there. And that is better than nothing, 100%. And that could be good enough for some people that are genetically gifted and don't have injuries. But for the normal person, not going to cut it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's super interesting. From like a physiological standpoint, like at a basic level, doing band exercises and say body weight versus, as you said, loading. When you look at a trail runner, what are some of the benefits that they may not know of that they get from that loading that will apply to their running?
Yeah, I mean, you're doing so many different movements, and you're putting so much force in different angles on your joints, and you need to train that. You need to train the uneven. You need to train, I mean, freaking, we go up mountains, especially if you're doing a mountain run. You need good balance. Like that's a big one too. I think a lot of people don't work on that. And it like not even runners. Like if I were to take all of my clients, like a lot of them don't have good balance, including me. Like I also need to constantly work on this. And it's not something that you can just do, even if you do it for a month straight. Great. Good for you. You were consistent, but unfortunately, like you have to keep doing it. It's just like running, like you can run consistently for a month, but you can't take a month off and then expect to like what I ran for a month. Like, can't I race? It's like people separate strength training like it's not a part of the sport. And it really is all a part. It's like you have to drink water, you need to sleep the right amount, you need to eat the right nutrition, you need to also do strength training. And I do think that it's interesting that it's becoming like a new thing. I just coming from the collegiate background, I'm like, what? We always had to strength train in college all the time. Like you weren't allowed to miss workouts. And if you did, you got in trouble. So it's just like I coming from that background, doing collegiate sports within strength and conditioning. I basically just wanted to apply it to mountain athletes.
So you mentioned that like loading in general is really important for trail runners. And so I'm wondering, like what fundamental strength exercises do you recommend for trail running? Specifically like focusing on shorter distance trail races. So like 50K and under is typically what we cover. And also like, do you suggest plyometric training as well?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say, well, I'll go backwards. Plyometric, yes, like 100%. I think that is kind of one of the things people can do if they are traveling or don't have access to equipment. It is one of the, like, you are overloading if you're jumping and moving quickly, and you can go in all sorts of directions. But if you don't move well, you can also hurt yourself. So it's like this, which comes first, chicken or the egg type of thing. And Instagram is the worst for this sometimes, if I'm being totally bluntly honest, because you'll just have so many random moves and they won't necessarily, the people saying these exercises won't say the progression or like how to get to that point. It's just like, try this exercise. It's great for your hips. And it's like, I mean, I'm guilty of doing this too. I try to do like things that I think people can actually do, but so that can be tricky. As for load, I would say it depends on where you're at in the season. So like I treat it more again like collegiate. So if you're just starting out and you're like just doing base miles, that's a good time to do heavier lifting. When you start to add speed and so you can think of more volume, when you're adding more volume, then you're going to want to do lower reps and higher weight, but you can't just do that right away because you have to build up to that. Core work, yes, you need the balance, you need the stability, and core is not just the front, it's not just doing plank, it's your back too. It's also your arms, right? Like if you use poles. Um, I know I've been doing like a way more uphill skinning, and I'm like, wow, I can't even honestly lift with any triceps when I'm doing so much pull, like pull pulling. Um, so, and then, yeah, I mean, basics, squatting, lunging, posterior chain stuff like deadlifts. I talked about balance. So, um, trying to work up to building power for your race, especially if you're doing a shorter race.
Yeah, That was a great answer. I realized after we asked it that that was extremely loaded. So thank you for
It's okay.
working your way through that and being thorough. MK and I have some notes based on your answer. The first thing I wanted to talk about was like you talking about like building it based on where you are in your training. And this is something that came up when we were talking to Nutritional Revolution. If you all have been following the Candid coaching series, she's the episode that comes out right before this one. And really talking about like, a season and how you build that season. And obviously it's based on the individual, right? Like there's some professionals that will build their year around, say, like OCC or making a USA team this upcoming year. On the ultra side, UTMB Western States, and like most them, at least the trend that the sport is going is like they have the time to like build an entire year around that. Whereas most folks, like they're signing up for bucket list races and each one they want to do
Yeah.
like, good for, the 2 months of training or the 3 months of training. And so I just think that's interesting that you called that out because it keeps coming up, like actually building the season. And so I'm curious if you were to take, say, a straightforward, like a person building up to OCC in August and say like 6 months versus 3 months out, what are some of like the basic principles that would get applied, to make sure that they peak at the right time? Hopefully this isn't too long for you.
That's also a loaded question, but that's okay. I would say you're going to hate this, but my answer is always it depends. It depends on the person's exercise history, their injury history. What is their goal? Is their goal like, are they trying to win? Are they trying to get top 10? Are they like psych, they got in, they're just trying to finish, and honestly, some people's goal is just like, I'd like to compete and not be injured, and that alone is an accomplishment. If you are at the start line and you're not injured, like you're 1%. Because most people are taking Advil and probably just trying to survive. So it's like kind of the reality, and it's something I think most people don't really talk about. And a lot of people are pushing through pain. Like the amount of people, I freaking live in Boulder. Like the amount of athletes that I know that are just putting bandages on things constantly to, get that podium, to try and just hold on. And they're young, they're in their 20s. I'm not that young. So I also feel though I competed, I did it, and now I'm like, it's great to see Taylor freaking crushing it, and I am so excited to live through her. But I'm like, I just want to do it for fun. I'm such like a multi-sport athlete, and you can't be when you really want to be at the top. Like you got to focus and do one sport. But I'm like, I like climbing and skiing and surfing and running. So it's like you can't be all over the place. But yeah, it again goes back to the goal. What are they trying to do? But when it's broken up into like if they have 6 months, like did they even have the months before for the base strength training, right? Can they handle, because you have to like build that in, and not just like toss someone into doing an entire program. Like for instance, I was programming for someone today, and yeah, they didn't really lift before. So I was like, we're going to start with once this week. Next week's going to be 2. And you're going to update me each week and tell me, like, are you getting too sore? I track metrics. If someone's energy levels are going down, do they need to be upping their nutrition? Because that plays a huge part into it. So yeah, sorry, it depends.
It was still a good answer. Even though we had the depends, we still, I feel like, covered plenty there.
Hey y'all, it's MK. If you've seen me out on the trail or at a race this season, you've probably seen me rocking the Pit Viper Admirers. These heart-shaped glasses have been my go-to for a look good, feel good attitude on race day and just in training. Not only do they make me look way cooler than I am, but they come at an affordable price and they come in a style for any personality or mood you might be having. Pit vipers are the sunglasses sunglasses would wear if sunglasses could wear sunglasses. If you want to run in style, go to the link in our show notes for 15% off your next Pit Viper purchase. See you out on Party Mountain.
I guess maybe this will be a little more specific, but maybe it won't still. How does strength training differ between like somebody who's training to be a mountain athlete and someone who's training to be like a marathon runner, flat road, track, or even like the difference between a short mountain trail and a long mountain trail?
Yeah, so I would say we'll separate it into trail and like flat first. And I think because of having done flat before, there's so much science behind all of it. And honestly, you have less fatigue, I think, when you're doing road. Like your body can just handle more. That's why you see sometimes people doing like 100 miles for like a marathon, and they're not even necessarily doing that like an ultra, like they're not doing anything crazy, and they don't even have elevation, right? So it's like they can handle more typically. And I would say because they're going to be moving way faster, that power in plyometrics is maybe even more important for the speed and the faster person because they're going to be doing flat. And then for trail, I would say just making sure first, like base, that their joints are all healthy, because again, a lot of people have things come up, whether it's like plantar or knees or hips. I've gone through it all. um, and then if you're saying like mountain, like the really technical terrain, um, yeah, you need to be doing all of the above, but it just really needs to come in phases, and it not necessarily all at once. So kind of similar to my other answer of that you need to just build your phases up, and yeah, not just pick the sexy Instagram workout that seems really cool. And then again, to loop it back, the consistency really, really matters. And obviously, when you're getting closer to your actual race season, like you are going to tone it back. But ideally, you've done the work, and then having maybe that only once or twice a week, super short maintenance strength routine is enough to pull through.
Yeah, as someone who has done strength training in the past, it's always better when I can somehow manage to keep it going in the summer because like you're saying, like typically in the winter, if you live in a place with snow, the only way you're getting vert is if like you're doing uphill skiing, or you like
Yeah.
drive somewhere with vert, but like it's still not quite the same, like the downhill and everything. And
Yes.
so at least I find myself in MK for sure too, like being more like our elevation gain week by week is like almost cut in half sometimes, if not one third of what we'll do in the summer because that's the
Mhm.
terrain we have access to. And so it's a lot easier to like lift heavy. But then, like you're saying, it's such a different fatigue, like when you're going up and down, up and down. So really finding a program, like you're saying, like to stay consistent through the summer. Like it shouldn't be so hard that you're like, oh, I can't even do that. It sounds
Yeah.
like it.
So you can, for instance, like, yes, the winter is a perfect time to lift heavier. And ideally, you have come from the summer of lifting light, so then you can go straight into that heavier lifting. And yeah, I mean, it takes probably at least 4 to 6 weeks to like rebuild up into it. And then you want to switch it. You want to switch it on your body. Basically, you don't want your body to fully like almost adapt. Like you want it to learn how to do these movements and how to push your body, but you constantly want to be changing the variables, so that you are getting a benefit. And like those phases can be 4 to 6 weeks at a time. And then you just have like a deload week, and then you repeat and do it again. And they can be the same exercises, but maybe you're switching like the volume in like the amount of weight, or adding like some balance, or adding a little bit of plyometrics in.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Something to kind of touch upon within like the overall strengthening in trail running. Maybe our listeners know this. I don't think MK and I have actually ever talked about this, but core strength is a huge thing in trail running. Just like for efficiency over varied terrain, etc. But especially on downhill, like being able to keep your legs under you and not let them get too
And
far
your
ahead,
pelvis under you.
and your pelvis under you, just everything below the abdomen under you. And it really helps with balance too. And
Yeah.
so, you know, with your experience dealing with mountain athletes, I mean, I could only imagine like climbers and skimo and anybody who's in skiing, core is super important too. Like, how often can people work on strengthening their core?
Oh, I mean, honestly, you could do it 6 days a week if you wanted to. A determined person might do it. But the core, like I said, it's not just the front, that's including your back, it's your obliques, it's your side. It, yes, helps with maintaining balance and stability. And then, yeah, I mean, you can do stuff like even for 10 minutes, right? But like, again, it all adds up, right? It's just the consistency. And so even like if we even did core twice a week, every week, like that would add up to so much. So yeah, just kind of going back to the consistency, and it really is easy to do core. Um, and so many of us, it's easy to stretch, but like
Oh,
it's
she's calling you out,
hard.
MK.
It's
Hey,
not
I'm
that
guilty of
easy.
it too. It's not that easy. But it's so funny because like I'll get people who literally do yoga 3 times a week, right? And they're like, help me with strength. And I'm like, damn, you're doing yoga 3 times a week? Like that's amazing. you know? And I'm like, I'm literally gonna lift after this. And it's like, 8 p.m. I'm gonna go probably at 8:30. Like I am the person like no matter what now, I will go lift. And I convinced myself because I'm like, I'm just gonna go for like 20 minutes. That's how I first lie to myself. But isn't that what we do for everything when we're running? Right? Like it's just one more mile, just one more mile, right? So that is what I always tell clients, like basically lie to yourself because you're already probably good at it. So convince yourself to go and do core for 2 minutes, right? Do it for, and it's how I work with a wide range of population. So like sometimes I am just trying to get people to move, right? And I do work with elite athletes too, but um they have different issues. So it's like no matter what, the one common thing with everyone is the consistency. Like beginner, I work with breast cancer patients, women who have just had mastectomies, who are survivors, and they're happy to move, right? And so but like, main thing is consistency, always.
Yeah, my husband always makes fun of me because I will lift for like maybe 30 minutes max. And he's like, that's all you're gonna do? I'm like, this is all that I can like mentally, like if you're gonna have me do an hour-long workout, I'm gonna quit after 2 weeks. Like, but if you
Yeah.
have me do 30 minutes 2 times a week, like I can handle this.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like getting to know the client, right? Like and that's always the main thing. What can you realistically handle? And sometimes people will come and they say, yeah, I want an hour, 3, 4 times a week. And I'm like, no, you don't. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to call people out and I'm like, the way I do it is I say, yeah, okay, I'll give it to you when I see, because the platform I use, it turns green when they do their workouts on my end. So I'm like, if I see all green for 2 weeks, I'll give you another day. So it's a reward that they get to strength train another day. I want a minimum, of a certain amount of days, but like if someone wants to achieve more, I'm like, yeah, if you lift more, yes, you're going to get way stronger, way more powerful, all of the good things, but
Not all at
I don't
once.
I don't want people to burn out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. And people just get too psyched sometimes. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially like coming into new year, like new year, new me, let's go.
oh my God,
Um,
yeah.
but that's really cool. I mean, I think there are a lot of weight strengthening coaches that would be like, you want 4 days? Sure, let's go. But it's
No.
really awesome that you're thinking about the longevity of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of longevity, we've already kind of like touched a little bit upon it here and there. You yourself have a lot of empathy for this because you at one point were injured for a while and then still are maintaining that. How important is strength training for people coming back from injury? And obviously it depends on the injury, but you as a strength coach, like at what part of their journey do you like to be involved?
So do you mean maybe we can make like a hypothetical person? So like, did someone come right out of surgery? So for me personally, I want someone cleared from a PT. If they are kind of doing the self-diagnose thing that a lot of us do, we just like look it up on the internet and we're like, yeah, I have plantar fasciitis. Um, I would ask them, how often is it bugging you? Like, and kind of try and determine, like, if I think that I can catch it, because if someone's like just starting to get it and maybe they're only feeling it once every so often, but like, it's creeping and that's the place where we can still catch it, but we don't, And so I would say then I would work with someone and it's 100% important. But if someone is like, yeah, I've been dealing with this for months, I'm like, no, go to a PT because the reality is they have ignored it and like, I don't know, something else could be going on too. So, but if it's like on and off thing, then yeah, I think you can typically catch it with strength training.
Yeah. Again, it depends, right? Our favorite answer today.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's a really good point because as we said, even before when people want a strength conditioning coach, like they get really excited. But it is important for all y'all out there that, yeah, you want to be cleared first before you get a strength conditioning coach. And then that's where Joss comes in. So yeah, it's important to, like, if you have a PT or somebody who you can work with, a doctor, to figure out when it's time to apply that strength training. But one more last little question in this realm is trail runners. What are some common daily strength exercises or weekly exercises trail runners can do to de-risk injury? The ones that come to mind specifically for this are ankles and probably like mostly like knee and down, I would guess.
There are so many.
And there's collarbones, actually. People have been
Yeah,
popping out their collarbones this summer. That was a big thing.
yeah. I'm like, I don't know, hips, low back. It goes
Yeah.
it goes up. I had a friend that like injured their thumb on their pole. Like, I'm like, I don't know. I think that there are a lot of things that can happen. But yeah, I mean, I would say it starts with the ankles and everything kind of ricochets up. And a lot of times people tend to ignore the feet and the ankles and just think, lifting is squats. It's like, yes, that is important, but are you lifting your toes when you're squatting? Are you leaning too far forward? Does your back feel fine? Do your knees feel fine while you're doing it? But I would say base, we'll say hypothetical person is healthy because that's like our ideal client, right? Like they come to you and they're like, I haven't strength trained, but I have no injuries, which is maybe 1 out of 10 when I get someone, right? And so that's why I say it depends because someone always has something. And if it's like a small something, then I'm okay with working with them. But yeah, I would say it is for women specifically, we are more quad dominant. So we'll say hypothetical woman uninjured client, posterior chain. So that's going to be more like hip thrust, deadlift, maybe even single leg deadlift, but you can't go single leg until you work normal because the balance factor. But both are good. Core strength, your back is important. Obviously quads. So like a progression to a pistol squat, maybe not necessarily ever getting to a pistol squat, but working to a box. And so like a squat, a push, like I do a push, a pull. I try to do basically body parts for people, and then I break it up. I try to not give people more than like 5 exercises at a time so that it takes maybe 30, 45 minutes. And that way people do it. Because if it is an hour, sometimes you're not the only one. Most people, honestly, an hour is too much sometimes. And it's not that they can't do it. It is just that, okay, I'm bored. Like I'm not outside running. I'm weird. I like being in the gym. But yeah, I would say get music that amps you up and lie to yourself, tell yourself you're doing 10 minutes and start with 1 round, right, of all 5 exercises. And then maybe you do another set, and see how consistent you can be week to week.
That's a good way. Trick yourself.
Yeah.
Lie to yourself.
Yeah.
It depends, and lie to yourself are today's mottos.
Yeah. They're like, great. Yeah, I don't want to work with her.
Yeah. They're like really positive environment there.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Out of curiosity, why are women more quad dominant? Is it like the way our
Our
bodies?
hips. Yeah, our
Oh,
hips.
interesting.
Yeah, our Q angle. So, yeah, I mean, you notice more male runners are just like stick, and they don't have hips. They don't have to birth children. So they get lucked out on that. But yeah, it's why sometimes women will get more knee injuries is just because of our hips. And we are just, again, because of the angle, more quad dominant. And so just making sure that, I mean, our hamstrings and our glutes are huge muscles. And, a lot of times people focus on the more squat movement. And actually, we need our booties to be strong. So
Yeah.
our powerhouse.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's one piece of advice you'd give to a runner that's transitioning from road running to trails in terms of strength training?
Worst answer again, it depends. If they strength trained before, then great. Then we can kind of lead
Let's
them
assume,
into.
yeah, they strength trained before.
Okay.
We'll
They
create a
strength trained
hypothetical.
before. I like the hypothetical person.
Good job, MK.
Because that's it. Like always is like it's what you do when you're a strength coach. Like you have your like hypothetical person, and it's how you learn to program. Because you're like Sally, age blah 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 blah, has these things going on, and then you got to program for them. I would say, well, what race are they doing? First off, right? Like, there are loaded questions because it it does depend on like their volume on like were they a marathoner? Are they doing just a half marathon? Do
Here, we'll
they?
set you up a little bit better.
Yeah,
We'll
give me a hypothetical person.
Do you know Broken Arrow?
Yes, that's so funny that you said that because my husband was trying to give me questions before this, and he's like, "All right, go, Broken Arrow," and I was like, "I don't know anything about that race." And he's like, "We'll figure it out."
I love it.
And you
Well,
said it.
yeah. Like say they were a road half marathon runner and they're going to go run like the 23K, so 1 lap. So it's 1 lap with like
What's the
5,000
vert?
feet of gain.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like not all at once. It's like 3 mini climbs and then pretty much like a long downhill with 1 more climb.
So I would say, yeah, they would need to focus on like step ups are great. That's kind of a replacement for a squat motion because you don't want to do like you can also overtrain, right? If you're doing too much of the same movement. So let's say they were strength training and this was the beginning before actual like getting close to season. So like step ups would be great, loading the step ups, maybe starting with body weight first. And then maybe towards the end, they're working on like depth jumps, more plyometric movement, because they're going to be, I mean, it's really hard on you to run down, and ideally you're trying to go all out and run down fast. So preparing your joints to handle that type of movement. But I would say, yeah, just making sure that you're building that strong base. So maybe step ups, any lateral movement because you're just running forward. So making sure that you're getting, not just that sagittal plane, you're getting a transverse plane too. Twisting is important too. I think a lot of people ignore twisting, and that matters a lot when you're running too, especially with your arms. So that goes down to your, again, trunk and core. So you do like a core, a push, a posterior, and maybe like a light upper. And then sometimes I'll do like 2 posterior. So then that would be 5 exercises. And another thing I always have to ask is, what equipment do people have available? Because you would honestly be mind blown by the people that they're like, yeah, I want to strength train. They're like, I have 2 5-pound dumbbells. And I'm like, what? Okay. I mean, that's fine when I am working with someone that their goal isn't to, necessarily get better at their sport, right? If I'm working with a more normal population or a breast cancer patient, I'm going to work with what you have. But if someone is more of an athlete, or they like have a goal in mind, then I'm like, no, you need to go to the gym. So yeah, also depends on what equipment they have.
I like the idea of the twisting exercises. And so out of my own curiosity, like what kind of exercises do you do for twisting? Would you do like, because we used to do this exercise before running in college where we would do like a lunge and then, little twist with
Yeah,
it.
those are amazing. Yeah,
Okay.
those are awesome. Honestly, and that one you're hitting exercises that you hit like a multi-dimensional thing. So you are lunging, so you're hitting quads, you're hitting your glutes, you're twisting. You can even do like a pretty heavy medicine ball. So then you're getting core at the same time, and you're getting arms because your biceps are trying, and deltoids are all working too. So yeah, if someone is like, realistically, I'm gonna lift for 20 minutes. Give me like work with that, and so then, I mean, sometimes those are the most fun for me because I'm like, all right, let's see what we can like squeeze in. And something like the lunge twist is a great exercise. Yeah, and you can even do like a step up and add a twist, right? You can, yeah, get creative with a lot of those types of exercises. You can do medicine ball throws against walls. That would be more of a progression because that's, a little bit more power. But yeah, infinite type of movements you can do.
Hey y'all, it's MK. It's that time of year where everyone you know is getting sick. My husband works for the school district, so we are constantly at the ready. I've been using Beekeeper's Naturals immune boosting products, and they've become a huge part of keeping my system strong during tough training blocks, especially during the winter. Beekeepers uses propolis, which is packed with antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. I like to use a throat spray if I start feeling like I'm getting sick, or if I'm getting close to a race, or if somebody else I know that I've been around has been sick. If you're looking for a natural way to support your immune system, I highly recommend giving Beekeepers Naturals a try. Use code SUBHUB20 for 20% off of your orders at beekeepersnaturals.com.
Well, one more question to close us out. Ooh, I kind of have another one though. Well, I'm gonna load one more in there. Hopefully it's not too loaded. Obviously this is the Sub Hub podcast because our last question is more of like a generalized takeaway. But obviously this is the Sub Hub podcast. We're focused on anything from a marathon under in the trail space, time wise, that can be 30 minutes to sometimes like 5-6 hours, and then depending where you are in the race, potentially even longer. And then we also focus on the 50K. So assuming in this case we're talking about a 2 to 4 hour race, and comparing that to say then an ultra will say 10+ hour race, generally, what are the biggest differences you would apply to a strength training program for that short distance versus the long distance?
Yeah, the long distance person, I mean, they are just as prone to injury, if not more, because they are putting their body through so much. And again, I'm gonna have to say it depends because is the person, are they a professional? Are they balancing kids? Do they have a job that's extremely demanding? And so it always is gonna really depend on how much time they can give. And I will always push for more, but I mean, it's whatever they can give. So that person that's doing the 10 plus hours, maybe they only have time for a little bit before they go on a run and sprinkled throughout the week. So if they can only do body weight, then maybe it's wall sit holds, right? Maybe it's calf raises outside, maybe it's grabbing a rock and doing lunges, so um there are only so many hours in a day, so it does get tricky with that. For sure. I mean, you talk to anyone that's doing those big races, I mean, most of them have something going on. They're just trying to make it for, I would say, most of the population. So, treating the things that maybe start to come up, because sometimes I'll give like a base and then things always come up. So then we're constantly just trying to mitigate, right? So, like, if someone's like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit of weird knee pain, I'm like, okay, where exactly? Because I'm gonna like anatomy look at it and be like, okay, we'll try it. We're gonna start adding these in, and then maybe we can, nip it before it actually turns into something. But I think that's what it turns into more with that longer distance person. It's just like you're constantly just trying to mitigate injury. And it's a lot easier to work with a person that's doing that 2 to 4 hour race because they are going to have more time, unless they're training like an ultra, which some people do. And everyone is different with their training depending on their coaches. But I would say, we'll say hypothetical person isn't doing that crazy volume, then yeah, their race is faster. So that's going to be treated more like a marathon, which you do want more power and strength for that type of race. And I think it's kind of cool because it is starting to happen more and more. And I think people are understanding that this same thing happened in climbing, but they're understanding, oh, I can prevent these injuries by doing strength training. Or, oh, I can stretch and, oh, my hip doesn't have to hurt. I don't have to just pop the Advil to like, you know, get that 5 or 10 mile run that I need to do. So yeah, it's power with knowledge, honestly. And again, I dealt with this same thing in climbing. And I had to try to convince people that they should lift for climbing. So, but everyone's catching on now, so it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, so it almost seems like obviously if you have less time on your hands, if you're training more, you're working more, whatever that is, like the focus should almost be on like reducing injury
Recovery.
risk and yeah,
Yeah.
like recovery. Whereas if you have more time, you can put a little bit more into that like power and strength that focuses more towards like speed.
Yeah. I mean, an ideal world, yes, I
Yeah.
would have the long distance person do a similar but slightly less volume. And you'd also put it into phases because there are going to be times that they're running less volume for them and they're just adapted to more mileage. So they could also handle some strength. But yeah, I mean, what is their work-life balance? What's their family life balance? So it always starts with that first when someone's going to start working with me, as it should with any other coach too.
Yeah. So I guess to close it out, you kind of just answered this, talking about climbing a bit, but what's your perspective on the evolution of trail running and strength training, and where do you see it going in the next few years?
Ooh, I would hope that it would continue just like climbing to grow. And I hope that there's more people that push strength training and kind of empower more women to, we didn't even touch on this, but to lift, but a lot of women in general, or even men, this happened in climbing too. They would say they want to strength train, even cyclists, but then they get worried about gaining too much muscle. So you're hearing it here. It is so hard to gain muscle unless you have a specific body type. And it doesn't tend to attract those like muscular body types. It's those people are, they veered towards like the Hydrox or the CrossFit, but we're seeing it a little bit more, I feel like, that people are calling themselves hybrid athletes. I honestly hate that, but yeah, I think that whatever, if that makes it cool to do it, then great. I think that all of us just need someone to look up to that's doing it, and then they're like, oh, I can do it too. So yeah, I think if there are more elite runners that also strength train, then say that they're doing it, more people will do it too.
Yeah, once you get the like validation that, oh, like Danny and
It
MK strength
works.
train and they're not like bulking up out here.
Totally.
So
Yes.
I do have to say, because I personally do love strength training. Like, I always swear I'm getting super swole, but I love it. And my sister actually has done like competitions and stuff, and I'm like, dude, look at my bicep, it's huge. And she's like, no, that thing is tiny.
you're like, but I
Yeah.
can do 10 pull-ups
Yeah,
now
yeah.
instead of one.
So to Joss's point, yes, it is hard to like super bulk up, but your confidence just skyrockets, and that's what matters.
I mean, technically you are getting swollen,
Yes.
for a
Oh, that's
small
true.
amount of time. For a small amount of time. I tell people, yeah, you're getting ripped. Your
Yeah.
muscles are literally ripping and they will recover and heal. Like that's where those words come from.
Thank you. We
But
needed that pop culture.
yeah, but I hope that it becomes cool. I hope that, I mean, I would say I don't know about the predictions. It's so hard to say. But because like, yeah, I've had friends talk about this. Like, where is it going to be in the next even 2 years? Like, I predicted this was just a year ago. I was like, oh, I think we're like 5 years from, like all those college kids coming in. And I'm like, whoa, never mind. I think we're a year from that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I was happy to get top 10 in things. Like now I'm like, I don't know if I can do that anymore. We'll see. Like these people are so fast now. And the sport is changing rapidly. And totally off topic, but I worked with North Face and Adidas and like their marketing teams. And it's been so interesting. Like these companies are pouring money into trail running.
Yeah.
They were doing it into climbing before, but trail running is the new hot sport. So I think that that's only going to escalate how the sport grows. So
Yeah.
it's actually really cool. And like I think that it'll also create a lot of opportunities for people who couldn't afford it and who are freaking fast, and it'll be really neat to see that happen. And then the more people that do it, I think naturally strength training will also be poured into that too.
Yeah, it just becomes more serious.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I feel
Yeah.
like even in like my short time in the sport, like, it's changed drastically and people like this is their job. You need to take care of yourselves
Yeah,
in more ways than just like I run mileage and I have time to hang out afterwards.
exactly. Yeah, it's a job. Exactly. So the more jobs that it becomes, then yes, people are like, okay, what do I need to do? And then that goes into that kind of collegiate setting. Oh, I need to have a nutritionist, a PT, a strength coach, all of these things, and create an actual team.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. Well, cool. That's awesome. Thank you, Joss, for joining us today. This was great.
course.
Hopefully we can have you on for another one in the future. And thank you for asking our extremely generalized questions with thorough answers. Shows how much
No, they're
MK and I
great.
know about string training.
No, it's great. I've done podcasts in the past, and I'm that person that always says it depends. So
Well, it's a
That's,
cool
I mean,
party
it's just the
trick.
truth. Yeah.
We can build hypotheticals for you all day next time around. We'll have like 10 scenarios and we're like, this person, this person. But yes, thank you everyone for listening to the Sub Pub podcast. Joss, if people want to work with you, how can they get in contact?
Instagram is fine, but email is better. I would say my website, bodyenroute.com, and you will do an assessment first. But yeah, they can either Instagram or on the website.
Cool. And we will include both your Instagram and your website in the show notes, so make sure you guys go check that out. While you're at it, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Like us on, oh, what was I going to say? Like our posts, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube. There's too many things. Just
Too
smash
many
those
things.
buttons.
Smash all the buttons on your keyboard.
Yeah.
But thanks all. This has been the Sub Pub podcast, brought to you by Free Joe.